Hi, and welcome to Crafts with Ash DIY and Decor. My name's Ashley, and today I am bringing you some amazing and must-try Christmas DIYs that I have made in the past. These have always been fan favorites and my personal favorites as well. If you're excited, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get started with these Christmas DIYs. First DIY is so easy. I had one of these little rocket shooters left over from one of my 4th of July crafts, so I just took off the yellow pieces and that little rubber band on the top. Then I took this peppermint themed scrapbook paper, and all of my scrapbook paper today came from Hobby Lobby recently, so you know that it's in stock. So all I did was measure it out so it would wrap around that little foam rocket. Then I cut out my piece, and by using hot glue, I simply glued it on to start making it look like the North Pole pole. Now, if you can't find these little foam pieces at the Dollar Tree anymore because summer's pretty much over, you can also use a dowel rod, or you can cut up a plunger stick to wrap this paper around as well. There's so many different ideas you can do to still achieve this look. So I wanted to make sure that all of the ends were hot glued down, and then I trimmed off the edges of my pole. That way it would stand up flat and paper wasn't hanging over. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. I really hope that you love what you see today and choose to stick around by subscribing to my channel. I am almost to 7,000 subscribers, and I would love for you to help me out by becoming one of them. If you're returning, thank you so much for all of your support and for choosing to come back today. I hope you're a subscriber as well, and don't forget to give this video a like if you're loving what you see. All right. Back to the DIY. So after I had both of my ends cut out, I simply took one of these little styrofoam balls and I hot glued it to the top to make the top of my pole. Now, I wanted to actually put some glitter on this, but I didn't have the right color, so I do plan on adding it, but for now, this is how it's going to look. Next, I took this little dowel rod and I used my miter shears to cut it in half just to make it a little shorter. After that, I took my Waverly chalk paint in white and painted my dowel rod. Once my dowel rod was dry, I took a pair of scissors and poked a hole in my paper, and then I pushed the dowel rod inside my pole. Next, I took this little tag that I got from the Dollar Tree and I cut off where the hole was, and now I'm going to cut down my dowel rod just a little bit because it was a little too long, but I had to make sure that it was going to be long enough to hold my little sign. After that, I took these red letters from the Dollar Tree and I spelled out North Pole. To add some detail to my sign, I took my white chalk marker and I drew lines and dots around the perimeter. Then, to protect my stickers, I went ahead and put on a layer of Mod Podge. Once the Mod Podge was dry, I took my Crop-A-Dile and I punched 2 holes at the top of my sign. After that, I took some of this red and white twine. Now, this actually came off ribbon with burlap, so I am just pulling off the burlap part, and then I'm going to loop it through one of my holes, and then I'm going to cut off another piece and do the same. Once both of my pieces of string were looped through, I went ahead and tied them both to my wooden dowel rod. I did make sure that the knots were towards the back of my sign, and then I tacked them down with some hot glue. I also made sure that these were tied really tight. Then I just cut off the extra twine. Finally, I took this little foam ball that I had from Valentine's Day, and if you don't have these, you can just use a wooden bead, and I glued it to the end of my dowel rod. Then to help this stand, I actually had this stand left over from another DIY, and so I just painted it black. Now you can also construct that with some tumbling tower pieces. Once it was dry, I simply applied a generous amount of hot glue to the bottom of my pole, and now I have this super cute North Pole sign. For the next DIY, I'm going to take this little floral disc and I'm simply going to paint it in a few coats of white Waverly chalk paint. Now, after I painted the first coat, I did decide to take some Dollar Tree spackling and fill in that hole. Now, you could kind of probably skip this step because we're going to be covering this anyways, but at this point, I thought I was going to paint it, but then I changed my mind. After that, I sanded it down and then proceeded to paint one more coat of that Waverly chalk paint on that disc. Once that dried, I took this music sheet scrapbook paper, again from Hobby Lobby, and I traced my circle around it and then cut it out. Then, by using a good amount of Mod Podge, I applied a nice even coat and glued my piece of paper down on my disc. Then, to get rid of any of the paper that was hanging over, I took my sanding block and I sanded in the down direction, and that helped me to get a nice clean edge. After that, I took this little vine garland that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I had taken this off another project, so it was kind of big, so I just took it apart and then I made it a smaller wreath, and I just wrapped it around each other until I got the size I needed. Once I had the wreath in the form that I liked, I went ahead and hot glued it to the center of my little disc. After that, I took this little berry garland that I've actually had left over from Valentine's Day, and I just cut off some of the berries and randomly hot glued them around my wreath. Next, I took some pine cones off of another DIY that I had and stuck that at the top of my wreath. And then I'm going to take this solid red ribbon and just tie a simple shoelace bow. Then I'm going to glue that on the top of my pine cones. Next, I took this leftover bell that I had from a wind chime from the Dollar Tree, and the first thing I did was take out the little stick in the center, and it was easy. I just had to pry open the little loops in the middle, and then I could easily get it out. But this is exactly why you want to save stuff like this, because I have a ton of these because I did all of those metal flower DIYs and bells came on each of them. So I saved all of them, and now look, it's coming in handy. So by using some super glue and some hot glue, I'm going to glue it right on top of my little disc to make it look like an ornament. Now you do have to hold it on top for several minutes until the glue sets up. After it sets up, you can go ahead and release it, and then I just cleaned it up a little bit, and I did hit the sides of my disc again with that white paint. After that, I took off the chain on the top, and then by using my chippy brush and my Waverly Antique Wax, I distressed the edges of my little ornament. Now, I love the rustic look. If you don't like the rustic look, you can absolutely skip this step. It's totally up to you and what you love and what makes your heart happy. But for Christmas, I do go the rustic route. So after that, I took a piece of twine and I'm simply going to tie it through the little loop at the top of my ornament and then tie a knot. Now, I'm not actually using this as an ornament. Again, this is some tiered tray decor. So I took three of those little wooden blocks from the Dollar Tree. I glued two on top of each other, and then I glued it to the back of my disc and then glued one right next to it, as you see. Now, I did glue my little ornament so it stood at an angle because I just thought it looked cuter like that. And now I have this really cute Christmas ornament stand-up sign for my tiered tray. Hey, did you know that I have another YouTube channel? Well, I do. That channel is called Life with Ash, and it is a more behind-the-scenes vlog style channel. If you love all things home decor, home decorating, cleaning, organizing, shopping, hauls, mama hacks, and mama life, and everything in between, this is definitely the channel for you. Now, I like to keep it real on my channel. I live in leggings. My hair is always in a messy bun. I rarely ever wear makeup, and I am just trying to get through this thing called life. So if you can relate to any of that, check out the description box below for the link to my other channel, Life with Ash, and come hang out with me over there. For my next DIY, I am going to use this little truck, and when I saw it in the Crafter's Square at Dollar Tree, I squealed out loud. It is a 3D truck, and how cute is this? The possibilities are endless. So of course, I had to do the traditional little red truck. So the first thing I did was give this a coat of crimson Waverly chalk paint, and whatever I do to the front, I also did to the back, but I'm just going to show you the front. After my red paint was dry, I took some black acrylic paint and just painted in my tires. Next, I took a baby wipe and I dipped it in some Waverly Antique Wax, and I used that to faux stain the grates, I guess it would be called, of my truck. Next, to give this just a little bit more detail, I took my black paint pen and I traced around all of those open areas of the truck. I just wanted to highlight those a little bit more. Next, I took this scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby and I cut out that little tree. I loved this scrapbook paper because it had a lot of Christmas themed words and graphics on it that you can use to Mod Podge onto projects, and you're going to see that the last project I actually do that too. So I just cut it out, and I did cut off the little base because I didn't really want it to look like a decorated Christmas tree. I just wanted it to look like a tree. So I cut around it so none of the white color was showing. It was just a black tree. And then I'm going to use my Mod Podge to glue that to the front of my truck on the door. Now, I did decide just to put a coat of Mod Podge over the entire thing to protect all of my paint. Once that was drying, I took this little tree that I had left over from Christmas last year, and I just kind of gave it a little haircut because it was actually missing the top of it. So I cut this down to make it look more pointed at the top, and then I'm simply just going to push that inside of my truck. After that, I took the paintbrush that had some white paint on it, and I just dabbed it on the branches of my tree so I could fill it out more with that snowy effect. Now, I purposely did not glue it in there because actually it just kind of stuck, but I'm glad I didn't because then I decided to paint the inside of my truck with red paint because I noticed that you obviously can see that it's still that natural color. Once that was dry, I took my chippy brush again and my Waverly Antique Wax, and I just distressed the front of my truck. Again, if you don't want that look, you absolutely don't have to do it. To finish it off, I stuck my tree in, and how cute is this? For my next DIY, I'm going to grab this little coffee cup picture that I got from the Dollar Tree, and after I remove it from its packaging, I'm going to give it a really good coat of that Crimson Waverly chalk paint. I actually had to give it 2 coats to cover all of the wording. Now you're going to notice I did not paint the top, and that's because we're going to cover it with something else. After that, I stuck it to the side to dry, and then I took this little wooden disc, and it's actually the back of one of those lemons from those wooden shapes. I gave it a good coat of Waverly chalk paint in white, and then by using that crimson paint, I'm going to paint the shape or the look of a peppermint. Now, I am no artist when it comes to freehand painting, so this was the best I could do. I think it turned out pretty cute, but I know someone else could do so much better. Once that was dry, I hot glued it to the middle of my little cup, and then I'm going to take this white and red twine that I got from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to wrap it at the top of my peppermint and the bottom. Next, I'm going to take cotton balls and I'm going to kind of pull them apart so it doesn't look so much like a ball. And then I'm going to hot glue them at the top of my cup to make it look like foam. Next, I'm going to take this red and white straw that I got in a pack from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut it down and then simply hot glue it underneath the cotton. Then I took the top of a paintbrush and I dipped it in some of that crimson red paint, and I just dabbed it on my cotton to make it look a little bit more festive. Now, I kind of felt like this needed something, so what I ended up doing was removing all of the twine and then taking this really sparkly, fun ribbon. I'm not sure where this came from because my mom gave it to me from her craft stash, and I hot glued it where the twine was, and then I went ahead and hot glued the twine back on top. Finally, to add one final detail and to make this look very Christmassy, I added these little red and green poof balls to the top to make it look like sprinkles, and that completed this super cute peppermint mocha display. I just want to take a moment and remind you that if you're loving what you see today, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it help my channel to grow, but it also tells YouTube that you're loving my content and that you want to see more, so it'll show up in your suggested videos. So don't forget to give me a like. For our last DIY, I took this Home Sweet Home sign that I actually got at Dollar General, and as you can see, some of the roof had actually broken off, so I'm just using my scraper to go ahead and get off the rest of the roof, and then I'm going to replace it. Next, I'm going to take this scrapbook paper that I got from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to trace my house on the paper, and then I'm going to cut it out. After that, I'm going to take some Mod Podge and glue my paper onto my house. Then to remove any of the paper that was hanging over, I took my sandpaper and I sanded in the down direction to again give me that nice clean edge. After I was done with that, I did decide to paint the edges around my house with the white Waverly chalk paint. Of course, if I thought to do this earlier, I would have done it before I glued my paper on it, but actually it ended up looking okay if some of the white paint got on the front because it kind of looked like snow, and we're going to add even more snow detail to this soon. So after my white paint dried, I took these blocks that I got from the Dollar Tree and I glued a bunch of them going down my house to create a roof. Now, I purposely had them hanging over the front just a little bit. That way it did look like a roof. Then I added one to the top to create the point and then went down the other direction. After that, I painted my roof with the white Waverly chalk paint. Now, I also took my white paint and I painted on the scrapbook paper a little bit up at the point of my house, right underneath the roof, to again give it that snowy look. And then I dry brushed a little bit of that white paint at the bottom so it looked like there was snow at the bottom of the house as well. Next, I'm going to take that piece of scrapbook paper that has all of those Christmas words on it, and there's one little section that says, "'Twas the night before Christmas and all through the house." And I'm going to cut that out, and it's that whole thing, and it was just a little too long. So I cut in between the two verses and then trimmed it down a little bit, and then by using my Mod Podge, I'm going to glue these two little pieces of paper right on the front. Next, I took a little piece of garland that I had left over from last year and I made a circle with it because I'm going to make a little wreath. Now, this was kind of wild and crazy, so I decided to give it a haircut so that way it looked a little cleaner, and I really trimmed it down, and you're going to see how much of a difference that made. After that, I'm going to form it into a shape of a circle, and I am going to tack down the ends with some hot glue, and then I'm going to glue my little wreath at the point of my house on the roof. Now, before I glued it down, I actually took my brush with the white paint and I just kind of dabbed it over to give it that flocked snow look. Next, I took some of those berries off of that berry garland again, and I just randomly placed them around my wreath. Now, to make this even look more like snow, I laid down some hot glue and then I sprinkled some Epsom salt that I got at the Dollar Tree all over the roof of my house. I put the salt on the front of the roof and then on the top, and then I actually added some to the bottom as well. Then to complete this little house, I took this bow that I actually took off of another DIY and I hot glued it right to the top of my wreath. And that was it. That completed this cute little house. So now that I have all 5 DIYs complete, it's time for the final reveal. I absolutely loved how all of these DIYs came out. I really didn't think I could get into the Christmas spirit this early, but I am totally ready for Christmas. I know that sounds silly, but these DIYs just kind of jump-started me into the holiday season. So you're gonna have to let me know down in the comments which one was your favorite DIY. I think mine was probably the truck, but then also that house. And maybe the ornament. I don't know. I love them all. But you're going to have to let me know which one you love. For this first DIY, I'm going to start off with a paint stick that I got from Lowe's, and this is the smaller size. And I'm simply going to start off by dipping a baby wipe in my Waverly Antique Wax and giving this paint stick a faux stain by just rubbing that wax all over. After that, I'm going to get out these jumbo popsicle sticks that I got in a pack from Walmart, and by using my miting shears at a 45-degree angle, I'm going to cut it in half. That way it comes together at a point, and then I am going to sand down what I just cut. I am going to make this into a tree, so I'm going to need it to be smaller at the top and then go wider towards the bottom. So I'm just using some scissors to cut the other end of my craft stick, and then I'm going to use one to use as a guide for the other one. Then of course I'm going to sand down my edges. Now I'm not going to glue anything down just yet. I just want to lay it all out to make sure I get the right sizing. Then after I am done with this craft stick, I'm going to grab another one and do the same thing, but this time I'm going to make sure that those craft sticks are longer than the ones on top. So here's where I'm going to grab that second craft stick, and by using my miter shears, I'm going to cut this at a 45-degree angle. Now you can see that the miter shears help with scoring it and getting exactly where to cut, but then I did have to go in with my scissors and actually make the cut. And then to cut off the other end, I just sized it to the craft sticks on top of it. That way, like I said, they're a little bit longer. And then I'm going to do this one more time to another craft stick, and again I'm going to make that one just a little bit longer than the middle pair. after all my wood pieces were cut, I'm going to take this inside of a cookie baking sheet that I had left over from another DIY, and I'm going to use the jumbo craft stick as a guide to cut out the width of the baking sheet. Then I'm just going to cut one strip, and then I'm going to again use my miter shears to do that 45-degree angle. Now, the miter shears are not going to cut through, but again, I just kind of used it as a line so I knew where to take my scissors and cut. So then what I'm going to do is put the baking sheet underneath the wood on top, and then I'm going to make the baking sheet just a little bit longer than the top two pieces. And I'm going to continue this with a second set and a third set. So I'm going to have 3 wood pairs and then 3 baking sheet pairs. I hope that made sense. So as I was trying to get my baking sheet pieces underneath my wood pieces, everything kept moving. So I did decide to go ahead and hot glue my wood pieces down, and then I hot glued one aluminum piece to the other aluminum piece. You'll see here in a second, but basically I just made a V with the baking sheet and glued them together, but I did not glue them down to the actual paint stick underneath. I hope that made sense. So as I'm creating these other baking sheet pairs to go on my tree, I just wanted to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, I want to thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I truly hope that you enjoy what you see. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back and for all of your support. I promise you, I am making my way through the comments. I know I am so behind on replying and responding to a lot of them, but if you commented in the last couple weeks and I have not commented back, just know that I absolutely read it and I do appreciate your comment, and I am going through all of them and trying to reply. I am so sorry I am so behind, but I do appreciate all the comments and all of your wonderful support. So thank you so much. So as you can see, as I am doing the baking sheet pieces, I am making sure that they are just a little bit longer than the wood pieces on top, because again, this is going to be a tree, so it needs to start smaller at the top and then get wider at the bottom. So basically, I'm just doing the same thing all the way down. After I had all of my pieces cut, I faux stained the wood pieces just like I did the paint stick by dipping a baby wipe in some antique Waverly wax and just rubbing all over the wood. Next, I took the baking sheet pieces and I painted those in my Christmas green apple barrel acrylic paint. Once those were dry, it was time to glue those pieces onto my tree. Now, this project was actually an inspiration from something I saw, I believe, on Kirkland's website, and I thought it was super cute and that I could make it out of things that I already had, but it's not going to look exactly like that one. But I also, after the fact, kind of thought that it might have been a good idea for me to hot glue these baking sheet pieces to the front of other wood pieces to give it more stability, but I still think it came out super cute. Now, after I had those green pieces glued on, I just took my Waverly Antique Wax and a chippy brush, and I just brushed over the green paint. Now, you do want to be careful, and this is why you have to make sure that your green paint is completely dry, because in that middle one, you can see that I accidentally rubbed some of the green paint off. Now, right here, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to repaint that little section, but again, just make sure that all of your paint is completely dry before you distress it. To make a stand for my tree, I'm taking 4 tumbling tower blocks and I'm going to glue 2 of them together, fat side down, facing each other. And then I'm going to faux stain those blocks with the Waverly Antique Wax and a baby wipe. And then I'm going to take those other tumbling tower blocks and do the same thing. Then to put this together, I'm going to add some hot glue to the back of one set of tumbling tower blocks, and I'm going to glue it to the bottom of this stick. Now you want to make sure to stand your tree up so you know that the tumbling tower blocks and the paint stick are flush to the surface. So you don't want the stand of the tree sticking out a little bit longer than it should. And if you do it right, it should stand up. After that, I took this wooden star that I also got from the Dollar Tree, and I hot glued it to another piece of that baking sheet. And then I'm simply going to cut it out. Now, at first, I started using my scissors to cut it out, and then I switched to a knife because I thought I could get a closer cut and a cleaner cut, and then I kind of went back and forth between the knife and my scissors. Then after it was all cut down, I simply just wrapped around the edges that were hanging and just kind of smushed them to the back. I folded them around. That way there was a nice clean edge. After that, I took the Waverly Antique Wax and my chippy brush and I distressed that star so it was not so bright silver and aluminum. Next, I took this little stick, and you can use a toothpick or any kind of little stick you have, and I faux stained that. And now I'm going to hot glue it to the back of my star. Now you want to make sure to line up your star so the stick is in the middle of 2 of the peaks, I guess, of the V part. I don't know how to describe it. So once that is glued on, I'm going to glue it to the back of my tree. Now I do want to be able to see the stick a little bit because that's how it looked in the Kirkland's one, and I kind of liked that, so I hot glued it up a little bit so the stick was peeking above. After that, I took some duct tape and I'm going to put a piece of that over that stick just to give it a little bit more of reinforcement. I also put a little piece of duct tape on the star and the stick as well. Next, I'm going to take this little piece of a garland that I had left over, and I did already give this a haircut, so it was very crazy and wild, and I did trim down all the bristles, that way it wasn't so crazy and wild, and I hot glued it to the top of my wood pieces. Finally, to add that little special touch, I took the darker berries and I just hot glued a bunch of them on top of the garland. And that completed this super cute, rustic, and really neat Christmas tree, and I think it kind of has a little primitive vibe to it as well, but I absolutely love this and I cannot wait to put it out in my Christmas decor in December, and I think it's going to fit perfectly into my rustic Christmas home. What do you think? For my next DIY, I'm going to start off with this circle sign from the Dollar Tree, and by using my hairdryer and a scraper, I'm going to take 1,000 years to scrape this sticker off of the back. Once my back was clean, I sanded it down just a little bit to get off any of the glue residue, and now I'm going to give this a good coat of Waverly chalk paint in white. After that, I'm going to take one of the brand new Farmhouse 2022 calendars that I got from the Dollar Tree, and if you have been in the crafting community for a while, you know that these are hard to get your hands on, but if you do, you are so excited. These are so popular because look at the amazing graphics and the pictures in these calendars. They are amazing, and a lot of crafters love making DIYs with them because they are farmhouse and they're rustic and they fit right in to their decor, and it's just gorgeous. So I, of course, am going to use the December page that has this little mason jar, and it says Merry Christmas with some Christmas picks and florals. So I ripped it out of the calendar, and I am going to Mod Podge it down on that board. Now, the reason why I painted it white was because I didn't want any of the darker MDF color to come through. So I'm just going to apply a really even coat of Mod Podge on my circle, and then I'm going to very carefully put my calendar page on top. Now, these calendar pages are very, very thin, so in my experience, it's nearly impossible to not get wrinkles, but just do the best you can. I mean, just pull it as tight as you can without ripping it. I'm going to use my brayer tool to go ahead and help me flatten it down and get out as many wrinkles as I can, but just be very careful because these are very thin and they can rip easily. So I'm just using that brayer to flatten it down. And just as a side note, if you ever see any supplies that I'm using, like the miter shears or this brayer, check my description box below because I do have links to all of those really neat tools that you can go ahead and check out and get yourself one if you would like. So all of those are in my description box. So after I have that glued down, I just took a pair of scissors and I'm cutting off the excess paper, and then I'm going to take my sanding sponge and I'm going to sand around my circle to give it that nice clean edge. Now, when you do this, please again be very careful because this paper is thin, and you want to also sand in the down direction, but that's going to give you that nice clean finish. After my board was all sanded down, I went over the paper one more time with some Mod Podge so I could protect the paper and also seal it in. Next, I decided I wanted it to be a little bit more distressed, so I took my chippy brush and that Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm just dry brushing over the image. Now, if you like it as it is, absolutely keep it. You do not have to do this step. I just wanted to make it a little bit darker. After that, I took some twine and I'm wrapping a piece of it around my fingers several times, 4 of my fingers, several times, and because I'm going to make a bow. Next, I'm going to cut a longer piece and I'm going to double it up to make the tails. But first, I'm going to cut a short piece to go ahead and tie it in the middle. That way it actually creates the bow. And then this is where I'm going to take the longer piece, double it up, and then I'm going to tie it around the middle, making sure that both of my ends are even. And then one side is a loop, so I do cut that, so that way it's just 2 separate pieces. And then I'm going to kind of fluff it up and hot glue it on the top of my mason jar. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you see today, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it also tells YouTube that you're loving my content and that you would like to see more. So YouTube will put my videos in your suggested videos. So hit that like button if you would love to see more DIYs. After that, I'm going to take more of this baking sheet and I'm going to cut a small piece down to fit on top of my circle. Now I am making sure to round out the edges because I want to make this whole thing look like an ornament, like a bulb. So I am rounding it out because this is going to be that silver part. Next, I'm applying a good amount of hot glue towards the top. Then I'm just going to push that on there. After that, I'm going to distress this a little bit by again using my Waverly Antique Wax and my chippy brush, and I'm just going to dry brush over the silver part, but I am going to go a little darker around the edges. After that, I'm going to take this floral wire and I'm going to cut off a smaller piece. Then I'm going to wrap it in that baking sheet. Now it is easy to wrap because the baking sheet is kind of flimsy, so it's nice. So it is easy to wrap and you just need a very small piece to wrap it, but I'm going to use this to make that ring. Now of course I would have preferred an actual silver ring up top, and you'll see what I mean in a second, but I didn't have any, so I just had to use what I had on hand, and this was the best I could come up with, and I still think it looked really cute. So I just wrapped that entire thing in the baking sheet, and now I'm curving it. I'm making it into a circle, and then I'm going to flip over my sign and use a generous amount of hot glue and hot glue my little wire up to the top to make it look like an ornament hanger. Then again, I'm going to take my duct tape and I'm going to tape it down just to give it an extra hold. Now, I did notice though that when I was taking pictures, it kind of started to slip out. So you may want to use E6000 or a super glue to glue that just to give it a even stronger hold. Next, I just dry brushed over that with that Waverly Antique Wax. Then I kind of thought that it was missing something, so there are berries in the image, so my mom actually thought of this idea to add some berries on top of my ribbon or my bow. So I'm cutting out the little berries from it, and then I'm just going to hot glue those on either side of the middle part of my bow. Then I'm going to take a small pine cone that I got from this little pack of pine cones from the Dollar Tree, and oddly enough I actually picked this pack up in the springtime, and they said that they're pumpkin scented, so I didn't really smell them that much, but I guess they're supposed to smell like pumpkins. And I hot glued that in the middle of my berries, and I thought that was so cute because there are pine cones in that image as well. Then to finish this off, I cut off a piece of twine. I'm doubling it up, and then I'm going to loop it through my piece of wire, tie a knot at the top, cut off the excess, and now I have the hanger for my little ornament. I love how this came out. It is a great use of the calendar, and I was so excited to use the calendar, of course, and I think it's so rustic and so cute. What do you think? For my last DIY, I'm going to use this rectangle sign that I got from the Dollar Tree around Easter time, but of course they have these all year round through the different seasons, so you can choose any one, it doesn't matter. And the first thing I'm going to do is take off the twine hanger. Then I'm going to flip it over, and by using my Dollar Tree spackle, I'm going to fill the holes. Then once my spackle is dry, I'm going to sand off the excess so that way it's ready for me to paint. Next, I'm going to give this board 2 coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color white. Once my board was dry, I'm going to flip it so it's vertical. Then I'm going to take a ruler and put it in the middle of my board. I'm going to use a pencil to trace the line on the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to continue drawing lines going down but I am lining up the top with the line above it. After I get to the bottom, I switch and do the same thing on the top, so I have lines going all the way down my board. Then to make this look even more like shiplap, I'm going to take my finger and just rub it along my pencil lines to give it that shadowing. I have really been loving using this technique lately, and I think that this is the perfect technique to use to give it that shiplap look, and I've used a bunch of different methods, but this is definitely the one. After that, I took my chippy brush and Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm just dry brushing over my board, and I am paying attention to the edges because I wanted to highlight those, so I made them just a little bit darker, but I just distressed my entire board. Then I gave that a nice good sanding so everything, all of the paints all blended in. Next, I took this pack of metal stars. Now I do not end up using this star, but I'm just using this as a placeholder because I am planning to put a star on top of the board. And I'm going to take this garland and I am going to line it up. I'm going to have a little piece at the top, and it's going to be narrow. Then I'm just going to go back and forth and just make it like a wavy shape, topsy-turvy shape, I guess. And then I'm going to give this a haircut, just like that other DIY. So I'm trimming this all down. Now, of course, ideally, I'd rather do this over a trash can, and that's going to be my advice for you, to do it over a trash can. But if not, I have my handy-dandy ladybug to vacuum it all up. After it's all trimmed down, I am going to take this string of lights, the fairy lights that I got from the Dollar Tree, and this is actually the copper wire. I didn't realize that, but it actually ended up looking really cute. And what I'm going to do is use my crocodile, and this is like a big hole punch, but it punches through wood and metal and all kinds of different materials, and I'm just going to punch a hole at the top of my board. And then starting from the back of my board, I'm going to string the lights all the way through. After that, I'm going to wrap my fairy lights around my garland. I'm going to go all the way down, and then I had some left over, so I wrapped it right back up. Next, I'm going to take this berry garland, and I'm going to start at the top of my green garland, and I'm going to wrap that going all the way down. Next, I'm going to start hot gluing my tree to the board. So I start at the very tippy top, and then I again just kind of create that very wavy pattern. So I'm going to kind of bounce it out to the right and then to the left, but I am starting small and then getting wider as I go down. I just wanted this to be kind of whimsical and fun, and this kind of actually reminded me of the Whoville tree from How the Grinch Stole Christmas, but my daughter absolutely loves the Grinch, so I think this is going to fit right into our home decor, but I thought that this was kind of fun. So I did have to put a generous amount of hot glue down on every part, and I'm only gluing on the ends, or like at every wraparound, if that makes sense, so every curve, but I am just doing my best to hold it there until the glue kind of sets up a little bit. And I did find that that did help. So I just hot glued until the garland was all used up, and you can see how it's kind of forming the shape of a tree, and I just think this is so cute. But you can see there that I am holding it down so that way the glue can set. So after I have it all glued down, I'm going through and kind of reinforcing some parts, and then I'm going to go through and trim it up just a little bit more for any long little pieces that I missed. That way it doesn't look so crazy and it looks a little cleaner. Now for my star, I decided to use one of these little metal stars off of that USA sign from 4th of July. And I decided that I'm going to hot glue it down on top of the hole that I had to make. So I really liked that because it hid the hole, but it also let us see the top of the tree. Next, I'm going to take a jumbo craft stick and I'm going to cut a little rectangular piece so it is the trunk of our tree, and I'm going to stain this with the Waverly Antique Wax. After that, I'm going to hot glue it down to the bottom of my tree. Next, I wanted the star to match a little better with the rest of the tree, and I just felt like the silver was just it just didn't look right. So I decided to kind of pounce on some of that Waverly Antique Wax to make it more of a copper. Then I flipped my sign over and I added some batteries to the battery box. This does take 2 AA batteries, and I thought that when this thing lit up, it really brought it to life. Then I'm going to pull my battery box all the way down, and I'm going to hot glue it to the side of my board. Now you want to make sure that you hot glue it screw side up so you can change the batteries, and then I also made sure to have the little on-off button facing up as well. Then to complete this, I'm going to add a hanger. So I took some of this nautical rope, I tied a knot, and then hot glued the knot down on one of the sides of my board, and then I'm going to do the same thing. Then I'm going to cut off the excess rope on either side. I love this piece. I think it's so different, it's whimsical, and so much fun. And like I said, when this is lit up, I really do think that it completes it and it gave it that final touch that it absolutely needed. And I just think it's so festive. What do you think? I really love how all of these DIYs came out today. They're just so rustic and festive, and they are totally my style. I kind of think that some of these have a little primitive vibe to them too, so I am loving these. I have to say, I think my favorite though is going to be the second one, which is the ornament. I just really love the image in the calendars, and hello, how about those calendars, right? Definitely, if you see some, grab a few of each type because they are amazing. I love all of the images. I think they are gorgeous and really fun to craft with. You're going to have to let me know down in the comments which one was your favorite, and let me know if you will be recreating any of these pieces for the holiday season that will actually be here before we know it. This first DIY is so easy. I picked up one of these little ceramic little red trucks from the Dollar Tree, and I squealed when I saw this. I thought it was so cute. So yes, it is already red, but it was kind of too bright for me. So I decided to go ahead and paint it in that crimson color from Waverly. After my truck was dry, I took a makeup sponge and dipped it in some Waverly Antique Wax, and I just kind of dabbed it all over my truck just to give it that antique, dirty, rustic look like a little red truck would have. Then, to give it that little Christmas touch and that winter touch, I actually took that makeup sponge, dipped it in some white Waverly chalk paint, and I dabbed that all the way around my truck too to give it that snowy look. So I really loved how easy this was to make. And, you know, of course, you got to have a little red truck on your Christmas tier tray because that's the holiday that started it all, I feel like, with the little red truck. Let me know down in the comments, are you a little red truck person? I never was, but I am one to jump on to trends late, I guess. So in the last year, I definitely have been loving those little trucks, those little red trucks. So next, I took this little branch that I had left over, and I'm just kind of giving it a little haircut so it's not so crazy and wild. And then I'm going to, well, of course, I have to clean up my mess with my little ladybug. And then I'm going to make it into a little wreath, and I'm just going to hot glue the ends together. And I'm going to hold it there. That way the glue goes ahead and sets up. And then I'm going to take that white makeup sponge again, and I'm just going to dab it all over to make it look flocked. And you're going to see I go on a flocking frenzy this Christmas because I love it when things look flocked. Next, I'm going to take this little pitberry garland, and I'm just going to cut off a little piece of it and then wrap it all the way around my little wreath. And you can just see I'm winding it around. And then once that's done, I'm going to hot glue this wreath to the front of my little red truck. And now the truck has a cute little wreath. So like I said, this is so festive, and it's funny about the whole flocking thing because I live in Northeast Ohio, and yes, we do get a lot of snow, and I absolutely hate it because I hate snow. I hate driving in it. It does give me true anxiety. I've had to pull off on the side of the road before, call my dad. I would be crying. So yes, I absolutely hate snow, but I like the look of it on DIYs. So of course we got to add a little tree. Now, I do have bottle brush trees, but I'm saving them for a big DIY I'm going to do, so I didn't want to use them. So I'm going to create my own little tree by cutting off some branches off of that little mini tree. And I ended up using 4. And what I'm going to do is just basically put all the tips together up top and just wind it around each other and kind of bring it to a point so it looks like a tree, just like that. And then again, I'm going to take that white chalk paint and I'm going to dab it all over my little tree to give it that flocked look. And then all there was left to do is stick it in the back of my little red truck. So this DIY, like I said, is super easy to do. If you see these little red trucks at the Dollar Tree, pick up a few because you can always paint them to be different colors throughout the year. So I think that would be really fun. So like I said, I love this. Now you're going to have to wait till the very end to see the final reveal of all of these little tier tray DIYs. For my next DIY, I'm going to use these little pumpkins that I had left over from fall. And it did have some glitter, so I'm just going to go ahead and sand that glitter off. And then I'm going to take the bow and the stem off the top, and those just break right off. You just tilt it back and it pops right off. So then I'm actually going to flip my little pumpkins over, and I'm going to use a hairdryer and my scraper to get those stickers off. And you guys know my gripe about the stickers. It's a pain. But if you keep just, heating it up, scraping it off, eventually they will come off. So after I got the stickers off, I'm going to take my crimson chalk paint, and I'm going to paint the orange pumpkin with that. Now, I'm only going to paint the sides and the back. Now, you could actually probably skip painting the sides. I thought I was going to do something different, so you actually don't have to paint the sides, just the back of it. And then I'm going to use my Christmas green apple barrel paint, and I'm going to paint the green one. And again, you could just paint the back. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I really hope that you stick around with me for a while by subscribing to my channel. And if you're coming from the playlist, hi, hello, thank you so much for coming. Also, if you're returning, you know I love you, you know I appreciate you. Please keep leaving me comments and liking my videos. I truly appreciate all of your support. All right, so after my pumpkins have dried, I took some scrapbook paper and I just cut a square around it, enough to fold it up and over. Now I'm gonna apply a good layer of Mod Podge to the part that I did not paint, because we are going to cover these and wrap them like presents. Now I did use scrapbook paper for this. I would maybe recommend using actual wrapping paper because it would probably be a lot easier to work with because it's thinner. So as you can see, I'm just going to wrap around. Now I did not have enough to actually wrap the back of the present. That's why I just painted the back. But if you had wrapping paper, you would probably have enough to do that. But basically, I'm just going to wrap these little pumpkins how you would wrap a present, and it was so easy to do. I also used some hot glue at the thicker parts. So you can also do that too, which you'll see. And then I just made sure that it wrapped in the back. So after I had my little green one wrapped, I'm going to do the same thing to the red one. And all of the scrapbook paper that I use usually comes from Hobby Lobby. So if you're looking for it, that's where I got it. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put my pumpkin on one little corner of the paper, cut enough so I can wrap it. And it'll go around the sides. And then I'm going to flip it over and just wrap it like a present. Now you do want to make sure that you do put a generous amount of Mod Podge because, like I said, this scrapbook paper is thick. So I did do the longer sides first, and then I will go and do the corners. Now this one, you know, these were a little bit, I had to play with it a little bit more because of those angled edges. I mean, it wasn't hard to do. You just have to play with it. But if you made this DIY with just like a regular square or rectangle, it would be so much easier to wrap because then you wouldn't have those little corners there. But I just thought that these made for really cute presents because it's different, and it was using something that I already had. And it was, you know, using leftover fall things. So you might be able to still find these in the stores now. So as you can see, I'm just trimming down, hot gluing the corners. And I really am paying attention to those corners because I do not want those to fall, or to lift up, sorry. And this DIY did not take me long to make at all. And I really love the effect that it gave. All right, so after my presents were done, it's time to add some ribbon. So I'm gonna take this red sparkly ribbon, and I thought this was so pretty, but I do need to cut it down just a little bit. Now just beware, this does shed a little glitter, so just, you know, keep that in mind when you open it. But the first thing I did was go ahead and cut off the ends, the wire part, and then I'm going to wrap it going long ways and then going the wide way around, just like how you would wrap a present. So I'm going to go ahead and glue my ribbon down to the middle of my green present. Now, for this ribbon, you definitely want to use a something to push the hot glue down, because it was, you know, it can get on your fingers and it could burn you. So I have my little silicone thing somewhere. I do pull it out eventually. So then I'm going to cut off another piece. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to cut off the wire on that piece, and then I'm going to hot glue it going the other way, up and down. And I am making sure to glue it in the back of my presents. There we go. There's that little makeup thing. That way it's not seen. Now my tier trays, they're always in a corner somewhere, so the backs are never seen. So that's why you're going to see me not finish the backs, because I don't need to. I don't like to waste the paper. I don't like to waste the paint if I don't have to. All right, next I'm going to take a piece of twine, and I'm just going to wrap it going long ways and short ways, and then I'm going to tie it in the back. And this is just to give it that rustic feel, and that way it kind of ties in, no pun intended, but it ties in with the rest of my DIYs on my tray. I am going for traditional colors, red, white, and green, but rustic. So you're going to see me using a lot of that Waverly antique wax, and, you know, just kind of making it very antique looking. So then I'm going to take another piece of twine, I'm going to wrap it around my finger several times, and I'm going to make a bow, tie it off in the middle, and then I'm just going to hot glue that to the middle where the twine meets. Now, I'm not the best at making bows, so you're going to see that I make the same type of bow throughout this whole video, but, you know, it's just the easiest one for me to make. And then I'm just going to cut off my little tails. Next, I'm going to take that other one, and I'm going to actually take a piece of burlap. I'm going to cut off the seams there, and then I'm going to cut that in half because I want them to be just a little bit thinner. And then I'm going to wrap it the same way, but this time the present is going to be shown going up and down. So we have the first present that I did going long ways, and now this one's going to be sitting up vertically, if that makes sense, but you'll see in just a minute. So I'm just going to wrap one piece of that burlap going the long ways, and I don't know if you caught it, but I did also take string off of the edges just like that, because I wanted this to look frayed as well. So I'm just going to glue that down. I had a bunch of twine stuck to my little thing. And then I'm going to do the same thing and go the other way. There we go. Now I'm going to do pretty much the same thing, but I'm going to use white cotton twine this time. I'm going to tie it around and then twist it in the front and then go the other way. See how I made that twist? And now I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to bring it back to the front and I'm going to tie it off in the middle. And then I'm going to just use my fingers to make another bow. Now I kind of had to adjust my strings here because I wanted to make sure that it was in the middle of the burlap, just like that. Now I didn't like how the one piece had just one string and then the second was doubled, so I went ahead and added another string so that way it all matched. There we go. All right, now I'm going to take a bigger piece and I'm just going to go ahead and make that simple bow. I'm going to wrap it around 4 of my fingers. I'm going to take another piece, tie it off in the middle. And like I said, this is just the easiest type of bow for me to make because I'm not a good bow maker. All right, so now you can see that I'm actually going to glue the bow so my present is going up and down. And I'm just going to cut off all the other little pieces and then cut down my tails. There we go. All right, now I decided I was going to add a little wooden piece. Now I do start off with this gold sparkly star, but you're going to see I'm going to change it in a second. To the other present, I'm going to add this little natural candy cane. I just kept them natural. I really liked the contrast in that. So now you can see I took off the gold and I'm just adding a natural star. Now you can see that they do stand on their own, but I did want to add a little tumbling tower block to the back just to kind of help it stand even better. So I felt like I wanted to add just one more little piece just to really make it look like presents, like those are presents. So I took this little chalkboard tag that I got in a pack from the Dollar Tree and I'm just cutting it down to make it more proportional to my presents. And I'm going to cut it in the shape of a little gift tag. So you know it is angled at the top. And then, like I said, I'm just going to cut it down so it is proportional to my tags. And then the first one that I cut, I'm just going to use that as a guide to cut another one to put on my other present. So I'm just going to cut it around. Next, I'm going to take my white paint marker and I'm just going to make a little border around the edges of my little tags just to make them pop a little bit more. Now this paint did not want to grab onto this chalkboard finish or whatever this finish was, so I did have to go over it a couple times. Then once that was dried, I went ahead and hot glued my little tag to my little present. And I thought that that kind of made it more look like a little present. I could have written on it and said to and from or, you know, something like that, but I just kind of left it simple, and after those were glued on, that was it. That completed these little faux presents, perfect for my tiered tray. And I thought that these were so cute, and these are good layering pieces too, so you could put things in front of them as well. My next DIY, I'm actually going to be reusing something that I made, and I'm going to be redoing it. And so I'm going to start off with this glass plate. I believe it's like a candle holder, and I'm going to paint the bottom of it, so the underneath part and around the edges, with my Waverly chalk paint in white. Once that dried, you can see that I did add some letters, but ignore that because I'm actually going to be taking that off for this new DIY. But I added some Mod Podge to the inside rim of my plate, and then I'm just going to add some Epsom salt to make it look like snow. So I'm going to go all the way around the inside of that little glass. All right, now fast forward to today and today's DIY. I went ahead and scraped off that snow that you saw on there, the letter, and I cut out this vinyl from my Cricut. It says Cookies for Santa, because of course on a Christmas tier tray, you have to have a Cookies for Santa plate. So I went ahead and put that decal right in the middle of my glass plate. Now I'm going to take this red and white baker's twine and I'm just going to hot glue that to the edge or the rim of my little plate. And I'm going to go all the way around. So for my tiered tray, I try to think of anything that reminded me of Christmas and I try to hit on every single part. So I made DIYs to kind of represent everything I could think of. All right, so once I got back to the top, I went ahead and cut it off. And then I just kind of moved it around to make sure that it was in the middle of the rim. Next, I'm going to take a piece of greenery. Again, I'm using pieces from this little tray because I don't have any like little garland pieces, so I'm going to have to use these. And then I just cut a little branch in half. I'm going to glue one half going one way and the other half going the other, just like that. And then I'm going to take a longer string of the baker's twine and make one of my little bows. Then I'm going to tie it off in the middle there. And then once I had that all tied together, I'm going to hot glue that to the middle of my little greenery piece. Now, of course, this is just for display only. I will not actually be putting food on this plate, especially since there's Epsom salt all the way around it. Now I'm just going to cut off the tails, kind of fix my little loops. Then, of course, I'm going to go ahead and flock my little branches here, my little garland piece. And then I did kind of dab around on the inside of the plate and kind of over the wording as well. Next, I'm going to take this little gold bell. I'm going to hot glue that to the middle of my bow, and then I'm going to take that white paint, and just to dull down the gold bell, I'm going to go ahead and hit that with that white paint too. And that was it for this little Cookies for Santa. Now, I did want it to stand, so to do that, I'm just going to hot glue a tumbling tower piece on the back. I actually hot glued two together, and then I'm just going to hot glue that to the back of my plate, and it stood up perfectly. Now, you can also use one of those plate holders that the Dollar Tree sells, those little stands, but I didn't have one, so this is what I used, and it worked out just fine. And I did go ahead and paint the tumbling tower blocks white so it would blend in. But then after that, this little DIY was complete, and I love how this turned out. It was so, so cute. And it was so festive too. All right, so of course, if you have Cookies for Santa, you have to have milk for Santa. So I took this candle that I actually found at the Dollar Tree, and look, it looks like a glass with milk in it. How perfect. So again, I made this little decal from my Cricut, and this one, it says Milk for Santa. Both of these decals, by the way, came from Cricut Access. You do have to have a subscription to get it, but in my opinion, it's totally, totally worth it. So I did not create these images. They're just in that Cricut Access. So you could definitely just go to images and type in Milk for Santa and search just like that. So after I had my decal on, I'm going to take that red and white baker's twine again, and I'm just going to wrap it a few times around the top of my glass, and then I'm going to cut it off and glue it to the back. And I did realize that I kind of put the baker's twine a little lower on the glass. I meant to put it up a little higher, so you're going to go see that I go through and actually hot glue it up just a little higher up on my glass. But look, I mean, when I saw this candle, I knew I just knew Milk for Santa. And I made if you remember in my pumpkin spice tiered tray video, I made a pumpkin spice frappuccino with one of these candles as well. So I thought that this was perfect. So now I want this to match my little Cookies for Santa plate, so I'm going to just basically do the same thing. I took a piece of branch and I'm going to hot glue it to the top. Then again, I'm going to run my white paint over it, give it that flocked look, and then I'm going to go over the lettering a little bit. Then I'm going to take more of that baker's twine, I'm going to make a bow, and then I'm going to hot glue that in the middle of my little branch. So like I said, I wanted this to look like a set. And then I'm just going to cut off the extra pieces, cut down my tails. There we go. Then I'm going to add a bell to this one as well. And this time I'm actually going to dab it with that white first. Then go ahead and add it. Then to complete it, I'm going to stick my hot glue gun to make in the candle to make a hole. Now I didn't put hot glue in there. I was just using it to melt a hole. Then I'm going to take this red and white straw and just put it in there, cut it down to size, and that's it. Now we have this cute little set for Santa. Perfect for my tiered tray. All right, now you know I gotta do the book stacks. So I'm going to take this crate that I got from the Dollar Tree. I removed the sticker on the bottom, which is now going to act as our top. And I'm going to paint the front where the slats are and the sides with my Waverly chalk paint in white. This is your friendly reminder that if you're loving what you see so far, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Not only does it really help my channel to grow, but it tells YouTube that you like what you see and you want to see more. So smash that like button. All right, after my paint was dry, I used these little stickers from the Dollar Tree to spell out "'Tis the Season," and I put one word on each of the slats, and you can see that I'm pushing it all the way to the right. Now, this is a great alternative if you do not have a Cricut or a cutting machine. You can do this method as well. This is exactly what I did before I got my Cricut. So I'm just making sure it's all lined up. And then once the letters were pushed down really, really well, you want them to really be pushed down. I'm going to take that crimson chalk paint from Waverly. I'm going to paint the top slat and the top of my crate, which is actually the bottom, but now it's the top, you know. And I'm going to give that a good coat. Now I am trying hard not to get it on the white parts, the sides. That would be like the pages. And then I'm also going to paint that bottom slat as well. Next, I'm going to take that Christmas green paint and I'm going to carefully paint the middle section. And I am trying not to get it in the little indents there, although it was kind of hard not to. And if it did, that's okay. I'm going to go back and fix it. But I actually did do 2 coats of that green. So you can see I'm taking my baby wipe and just wiping it. And then I did get some green on the red. I do go back and fix all that. All right, after my books were dry, it was time to take all of those stickers off. This is my favorite part because I love the big reveal. So now it says "'Tis the Season" in white. Those little stickers from the Dollar Tree are perfect size for these little stacked books. Now I'm going to take a really tiny brush, very, very tiny brush. I'm going to dip it in some black paint and I'm going to paint the inside of those little slats just to kind of show the separation between the 3 books. After all my paint was dry, I'm going to take my sanding block and I'm going to sand the front of it just to kind of, again, give it that rustic look. Then I'm going to take my Waverly Antique Wax and my makeup sponge and I'm going to dab all the way around the sides and on the front too. And you can see I'm taking my finger and rubbing it in as well just to give it that antiqued look. Now, if you don't like the rustic or antique look, you absolutely do not have to do that. I just love a rustic Christmas. I'm also going over the top. Then I'm going to flip it over to the sides and I'm going to make lines going horizontally to make it look like pages. And then I did go over my words as well. Next, it's time to dress my book stack up. So I'm going to take this beautiful ribbon and it's holly, I believe, Christmas holly and berries. And or mistletoe maybe, I'm not sure. And then I'm just going to hot glue it going around my book stack to hide those holes on the side. So I'm going to hot glue it down in the stack and then go up and around to the and down to the other side. And I'm not putting hot glue on all of it, just in little areas, just to go ahead and adhere it down. And I am pulling it taut so that way it's really glued down and there's no wrinkles. After my ribbon was glued down, I'm going to take another one of these branches again, and I'm going to actually put 2 branches together. I'm going to just twist them together to make it a little longer, and then I'm going to make a loop and put the ends of the branches down in the front. I wanted something to be hanging in the front, so I thought that that was perfect, and then I'm just going to hot glue it down. So you can see like it's a little loop, and then the tails are in the front, just like that. And then I'm going to take this pick that I got from the Dollar Tree, and it has some berries, it has some pine cones, and these little vines. So I'm going to go ahead and hot glue those to the top of my little garland branch. And then I'm going to hot glue the pine cones and the berries right on the top. And I am using a lot of hot glue because obviously I want this all to be secure. And I loved these little picks from the Dollar Tree because it basically has everything you need right there in the pick. And it's really pretty too. And I don't know if you can tell, but it does have some gold little sparkles on the pine cones too. So then I'm just going to hot glue my pine cone right in the middle. And then you know I'm going to go flock crazy, and I'm going to take my makeup sponge with my white paint, and I'm going to dab it all over the greenery, the berries, the pine cones, and those little vines. I just feel like adding that flocked look brings up a DIY or brings up a piece so much. I just think it makes it look so neat. Then I love that so much, I'm going to go around the edges of my book stack too. So I'm going to go down the sides. And I am paying attention to the corners because I really wanted it to look like a lot of snow collected in the corners, if that makes sense. So I am going to go around all of the edges just like that. Then I felt like I needed to top this off with a bow, so I made one of those bows with twine, and I'm just going to hot glue it to the front of my pine cone. And there we go. Now we have a little book stack. Oh, I forgot I did add a little bell in my little bow as well. And look how cute and festive and fun this turned out. Oh, I love it. Okay, now it's time for the final reveal. What do you think? I absolutely love how all of these tier tray DIYs came out today. I thought that they were so cute and festive and fun. And like I said, I really tried to pull from all areas of Christmas. Just when you think of Christmas, what do you think of? And I really tried to make a DIY to represent each part. And like I said, this is part 1, so stay tuned for part 2 because I have a ton more Christmas tier tray ideas coming up. I just had so many ideas in mind, I couldn't fit it all in one video. So you're definitely going to want to subscribe and stay tuned for that. You're going to have to let me know down in the comments, what do you think of all of these DIYs? Which one was your favorite? Are you planning on doing a Christmas tier tray this year? And what is your theme if you're planning on doing one? For the first dupe, I'm going to use these 2 black signs that I got from the Dollar Tree around Halloween time. And you can see that I already cut one of the pumpkins off of the sign. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the other one off of the other sign. Now, if you don't have these signs, the Dollar Tree has these long boards all the time. So you can just take 2 and paint them black. You can even leave them the same size. I just wanted to take the pumpkin off because pumpkin really doesn't go with my Christmas decor. So I'm just using my little utility knife to go ahead and score it a bunch of times, and then eventually it does break off. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and just cut off any of the excess board that was on there, like the MDF board. And then to really make it nice and smooth, I'm going to take this sanding block and sand it down. And I'm just going to continue to clean up this edge until I get it how I like. All right, after I have both boards ready to go, I'm going to flip them over, and don't mind the one on top. I actually dry brushed some paint over it because I was going to use it for a different DIY and never did. But this is going to be the back, and all I'm doing is just cutting up some of those craft sticks, and I'm just going to hot glue them to the back to glue the two pieces together. After that's over, I'm going to flip my piece over and put that off to the side. Next, I'm going to take an assortment of different tree cutouts. So I have these two wood tree cutouts. I have this little tree that came from a holder, and there was another side, but I used the tree for something else. So I'm just going to use my little blade to cut that off. And then I also have this big metal tree that I will be using as well. So after I have all my trees ready to go, I'm going to choose an assortment of scrapbook paper. So this is the scrapbook paper I'm going to use, and I did get it in a pack from Hobby Lobby. And then I'm going to use that burlap sheet that you saw as well. So right now, I'm actually going to cut the star off of these wood Christmas trees because I don't want it to actually look like a decorated Christmas tree. I just want it to look like a tree. So I'm going to cut the tips or the star off, and then I'm going to sand it down. And then I'm just going to start tracing these trees on random scrapbook papers. So I'm just kind of going through this real fast for you because I don't think you need to watch me trace all these trees, but I just made sure to have, you know, one of the big wood cutouts on each piece, and then this one's going to be that plaid. So I just kind of mixed up all of my scrapbook pieces of paper, and now I'm going to cut them all out. So I did do a rough cut around the big wooden pieces. Now for the other piece that I got off that holder, I'm actually just going to glue that right to the board. I'm not even going to put it on the wood. The inspiration image had some adhered right to the wood, and then some were to the board, and then some were 3D. So you're going to see that I'm going to Mod Podge the scrapbook paper on some of the wood pieces, and then the others I'm just going to leave as paper. I hope that makes sense. So after I have all of my trees cut out of the scrapbook paper, I'm going to go ahead and add some Mod Podge to the back of these big wood trees. And then I'm going to adhere my Christmas tree right on top. And then I'm going to do the same with the other wood piece. And then I'm going to Mod Podge the bigger piece of scrapbook paper onto the metal tree. Real quick, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to my YouTube channel. If you're new, thank you so much for choosing to stop by today. I really hope you choose to stick with me by hitting that subscribe button. If you're returning, you already know I love you and I appreciate you. And I want to thank all of you for the overwhelming support I received on my last video announcing that we bought a new house. Just to update you, we are in the new house, and it's taking all my might to not just start putting up all the Christmas stuff everywhere, but I do actually need to unpack, you know, boxes and stuff. So, but after this video today, the rest of the videos until Christmas are going to be decorating videos. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for that. Okay, so after I have all of my scrapbook paper glued on, I'm just going to take this little nail file and I'm just going to file the, or sand the edges. That way it's a nice clean cut. Now when you do this, you want to go in the down direction so you get all the excess paper off. And I'm going to do that to those two wood pieces and that metal piece. Next, I'm going to take my blackboard and I'm going to just kind of play around with all of these different trees and kind of try to decide where I want them to go, how to lay them out. So you can see I'm overlapping them. And then I realized that those two smaller trees had to go on the actual board because they had to be Mod Podged on the board. So you can see I'm just kind of playing with it and just laying them all out. So after I had all of my trees laid out how I think I'm going to keep them, I'm going to take this burlap sheet that I got from Hobby Lobby, and it is in their scrapbooking section, and I'm just going to cut out 2 triangles to create 2 more little trees. Now I waited to do this until I had all these trees laid out so I knew, proportion wise where I wanted it all to go. So once I had my triangles cut out, I'm going to go ahead and start attaching all of my trees to my board. So those 2 paper trees, I'm just going to go ahead and Mod Podge right down. And I am making sure that the bottom of the tree is at the bottom of the board. I'm sorry, I know it's a little cut off at the bottom. And then I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge the other tree back on. And then I'm just going to use some hot glue, and I'm going to hot glue the 2 wood pieces on. Now, they did end up hanging off the sides a little bit, but that's okay. That didn't really bug me. And I didn't mean to do it on purpose, but, that's just kind of how it landed. So I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue the 2 wooden ones on the ends. And then to do the metal one, hot glue and metal do not mix, so it wouldn't have worked. So I'm using these glue dots, and I gotta say, they worked pretty well. So I'm just putting those glue dots everywhere, and you can get these from the Dollar Tree or any craft store to go ahead and adhere that on. Okay, so I kind of thought like the triangles looked really weird without stems. So now I'm just taking some mini craft sticks and cutting them down to make a stem. And then I'm going to take a baby wipe, dip it in some Waverly Antique Wax, and I'm going to faux stain those little stems. Then I'm just going to simply hot glue that onto the back of my little tree. And I'm going to do this for both of my little burlap trees. I really loved adding this little touch because it did add some texture to this board, and also the inspiration photo had one too. So I thought that, it just gave something more for the eye to look at. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my second one, and you can see that the burlap trees, they're different sizes, so I thought that was really neat too. And then I just thought that the burlap kind of stuck out like a sore thumb because all of the other scrapbook paper was so rustic looking and distressed. So I'm just going to go around the edges and dab some Waverly Antique Wax all over it. Okay, so the final step is I applied this decal to the top, and I did cut this out of my Cricut, but if you don't have a Cricut, you can use stencils, sticker letters, you can hand write it on there, whatever you have for lettering. And it says "Joy to the World," just like the inspiration photo. So I just added it on top. Now the font I could not find to be the exact same as the inspiration photo, but I thought that this was really neat. So I'm just going to go ahead and varnish that on. And then once my wording was down, this sign was complete. I really, really loved how this came out in all the colors. So here's the Kirkland's one. Forgive me, it is just a screenshot. I'm really sorry. So Kirkland's is offering theirs for $17.99. Now you can see that I did switch up the patterns to fit more of my decor style. But like I said, I really love how this came out. What do you think? This next dupe is so easy. So I picked up this little wooden sled from the Dollar Tree, and I also picked up the little gnome that you can kind of see off to the side there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to dry brush some of that Waverly Antique wax all over the sled. Now the inspiration piece was just natural wood, but I don't know, I just, you know me, I just had to kind of make it look a little bit more rustic. Now the cool thing that I really liked about this was that I'm actually dabbing that brush onto a baby wipe, so it's kind of making it a little wet. So I really liked the look that this gave. It really, you know, made it look like natural wood and with all the different tones, and I really loved how that came out. So after I had my sleigh done, I'm telling you, this DIY was so easy. So after I had all of my Waverly wax on, I'm just going to take my little gnome, and I am going to cut off the hanger on top because we won't be needing it. Then I'm just going to kind of fix him up a little bit. He was kind of falling apart. So I just hot glued the hat back on his nose, and there's like some extra threads hanging down, fixing up his beard, you know, making him look good. And then I'm simply going to hot glue him on top of the sled. Now I am going to put a generous amount of hot glue down so that he stays. But then I'm also going to take that twine piece right there, and I'm going to hot glue it to his hands so it looks like he's holding on to the sled and he's sled riding. So this one turned out almost exactly like the original piece from Kirkland's, and I really love it. I think he's so cute, and this would also be perfect to go on a tiered tray as well if that's something that you know, want to do. So like I said, this one was so quick and easy and so much fun, and it only cost $2 to make. So you honestly cannot beat that. And look how adorable he came out. So cute. All right, so here is the one from Kirkland's, and they are selling theirs for $18.75. Not bad. Now, their gnome did have feet, but I gotta say, I thought mine came out pretty darn close to the original. What do you think? For the next DIY, you might remember this easel that I had at Halloween, and on the back is a fall saying. Well, I was really sad that I didn't pick up another easel or didn't have another one to make a Christmas sign, but then I got the idea to make an insert. So I could make a bunch of inserts and just change them out per holiday or season. So to do this, I took a piece of foam board and I am just cutting it down so it fits inside of the easel. So I'm going to draw, of course, my marks with the pencil, and then I'm just going to take this blade and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it down so it fits. Now, I cut it down so it fits snug, so that way it just literally can just pop right in there and stay. So once I had the basic shape cut out, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of stick it in and test it and make some cuts wherever I need if it was too big or, you know, whatever I needed to do. And then I did sand down the edges with my sanding block until I got the perfect fit. And you can see that it just literally pushes right in there. So it's definitely going to work. So the only foam board I had was black. Clearly, if you buy white, it would make your life so much easier and you would not have to paint your whole board white. So I ended up having to paint my whole board white because that's all I had and I didn't really want to run to the store. So now I'm going to use these decals that I actually got from Walmart, and right now I'm just placing them down because I just want to just check out my positioning and make sure that I like how it looks and, you know, stuff like that. So I thought that this decal was amazing and I've been waiting for something to make with it. So when I saw the original piece on the Kirkland's website, I knew this is what I was going to do. So on that original piece, they had I think they're called French stripes, where it's like this skinny stripe, the fat stripe, and then the skinny stripe again. So this was my first time actually making these, and no, they're not perfect, and it probably would have worked better if I had washi tape, because as you can see, I have to cut a piece of this painter's tape down the middle. So you're going to see that it's going to make it uneven for the fat stripe. So I end up having to turn it. Anyway, it was a whole thing. If you're going to do this, I would just recommend maybe getting some washi tape, because I think that would be so much easier. So I'm just going to go ahead and make all of my little stripes. And yes, you know, where I did cut, it is rough on the edges, but I'm not actually going to stencil in there yet. I'm just lining up my skinny pieces. And the decals are not Mod Podged down yet. I just have them laying there so I can make sure that I have enough room. So then again, I'm going to go ahead and add my skinny stripe to my board. Make sure it's all lined up. Now you can actually measure and make sure all your stripes are the same width, but you know me, I don't measure, I just eyeball. So next, I'm just going to take a little piece of a foam brush and some of that red apple barrel paint, and I'm just going to go ahead and do the 2 skinny stripes. And I did do 2 coats of that, letting them dry in between. So then after the second coat was dry, I just peeled up the one in the middle, so it now has the straight edge. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. And this is going to create the fat stripe. So I'm just turning it around. Now, if you had washi tape, you would not have to do that because it'll be straight on each side. So that's why I said it's probably easier with washi tape. Now, again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this, making sure it's even on both sides. Then I'm going to go in with my red apple barrel paint, and I'm going to paint on the inside of the stripe. And again, I am going to do 2 coats. So once that was completely dry, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the painter's tape, but I'm not going to throw it away because I'm going to do this same thing at the bottom as well. Now the bottom came out kind of wonky, but it's okay. It is what it is. Like I said, this was my first time actually making these stripes, so I was just kind of making it up as I went. Now for the bottom, I did attempt to measure, as you can see, but then I just gave up because I'm like, you know what? I just can't get it to work. So I'm just gonna go for it, and just whatever happens, happens. So you're gonna see the one stripe ends up a little bit too far away from the other, but hey, that's okay. So then after I had my tape down, I'm gonna go through and put my paint on. Then once that's dry, I'm gonna flip over the painter's tape in the middle to make that big stripe. And like I said, I tried to measure those, but it just wasn't happening. So then after that's dry, I'm going to go ahead and pull up all my tape, and now I'm done with the tape. And you're going to see the one line is way far away, but then look what happened when I peeled up this part. So the paper, like from the foam board, actually peeled up. So I will fix that in just a second. You won't be able to tell unless you're super, super close, but I wanted to leave it in so you could see how I make mistakes and fix them too, just in case it ever happens to you. So now I'm very carefully peeling up the painter's tape, and there we go. Holding my breath the whole time. And then I'm going to take a really small brush and some white paint, and I'm just going through and just kind of touching it up wherever the red paint got that it shouldn't have been. So you can see down at the bottom that one of the stripes is kind of far out there, but hey, it is what it is. Guess it just makes it look more rustic, doesn't it? So now I'm just going to go through and clean up my board with that white paint. And then it's time to lay out the decals. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to coat this entire middle section with Mod Podge. Now I shouldn't have done this quite yet. I should have laid it all out first and then put the decals on, and then put the Mod Podge on, but that's okay. So I put the Christmas trees in the middle, and then the trees. I was still able to move them around, so it wasn't that bad. So I'm just going to position them how I like. I cannot wait till you see the end result. I love this sign. And then I'm going to do the fresh cut on top. Then once I have it looking how I like, I'm going to go ahead and Mod Podge. And while I was at it, I went ahead and Mod Podged that piece down that came up. And like I said, unless you're really close, you really can't tell. So now I'm going to go ahead and put a good coat of Mod Podge over the decals so it helps it stay down. And this easel is actually going to be used on my front porch this year, and hopefully that will be the next video coming out. So I am super excited to decorate my front porch. In fact, as I am doing this voiceover, it is our first night in our new home. So I had all the movers keep all my front porch decor on my porch. I said, don't even take it in. I got to record a video. So here's the thing. Once I painted it, I think it kind of shrunk a little bit because it wasn't that perfect fit that it was. So I figured, well, if I put painter's tape on the back, I can just carefully take the insert off and it won't do anything to the board underneath. So that's what I did. So I just ended up putting some painter's tape on the back and then pushing it down. And I loved how this was looking. However, it was a little too clean for my taste. So I'm just going to take that chunky brush. I'm going to dip it in that Waverly Antique Wax, dab it off on a baby wipe, and I'm just kind of dry brushing that Waverly Antique Wax over it. You knew I had to make this more antique looking. Now, the original piece is just pure white, and if that's your style, that is totally fine. I just really wanted it to look a little bit more rustic. But after that, this easel was complete. Here is the Kirkland's piece, and I like that, but I did not like the farmhouse, which is why I changed it up. But I gotta say, I really love mine. What do you think? This next dupe is another super easy one. So I'm starting off with these rulers from the Dollar Tree, and they do come as a set of 2. And I'm just taking off the little sticky measuring part. And then I need to attach these 2 together because I just needed one long piece. Now, I did try a painter's stick. It was not long enough. So this was the only thing that I had that I could think of to use. But if you just have one big solid piece of wood, then definitely do that. So as you saw, I hot glued the 2 pieces together. And now I'm going to use my spackle to go ahead and fill in those holes because we're not going to need those holes. Then I'm going to sand it down so it's nice and smooth. Now, I will be adding something underneath to give it more support. So, because I did notice that it was kind of flimsy. But first, I wanted to stain this. So, again, I'm just going to dip my baby wipe into the lid, or the Waverly Wax, and I'm just going to faux stain this entire piece. And I really am trying to get in those holes so they darken up a little bit too. Now here's where I realized, okay, I need to add something to the back. So this is a really mini craft stick, and when I flip this over, it's so mini and it's so thin that it really didn't make it uneven, like wobbly. So it seemed to really help. Now I'm pulling out these letters from the Dollar Tree, and they spell out Merry Christmas. Now you will need several packages because it's only 1 letter per package. So as you see, I have at least 2 packages. And I'm going to do the little painter's trick idea that I usually do. And I love doing this because it helps keep your hands mess free. And I'm just going to paint all of the letters white. So as you can see, you just curl in the bottoms of the painter's tape, put it on your surface, and then you just paint it away. So brilliant.